The hashtag Petrodollar is not dying. Stop being fooled. The ABC of dollar finance. And a Q&A on viral financial illiteracy with Iqbal Latif. Before discussing viral claims about the death of the petrodollar, it helps to understand the basic structure of the global financial system. Too many debates today are driven by slogans rather than numbers. The numbers are straightforward. The world trades roughly $33 trillion per year in goods and services, but global foreign exchange markets trade about $7 to $8 trillion every single day. And in nearly 90% of those transactions, the US dollar appears on one side of the trade. This is the first lesson in the ABC of dollar finance. A. Global trade. Global trade in goods and services is approximately $33 trillion annually. Most major commodities, including oil, copper, wheat, and agricultural products, are still priced in US dollars. This is not ideology. It is how global commodity markets evolved over decades. B. Foreign exchange markets. Currencies must constantly be exchanged because trade, investment, and finance require conversion. The foreign exchange market trades roughly $7 to $8 trillion per day, and about 88% of those transactions involve the US dollar. This makes the dollar the vehicle currency of global finance. C. Dollar liquidity. The dollar dominates because the financial architecture around it is immense. The largest government bond market in the world, US Treasuries, the deepest banking liquidity pools, the main currency used in global trade settlement, the primary currency used in derivatives and hedging markets. The dollar is not simply a currency, it is the operating system of global finance. With that foundation understood, we can examine the viral claims circulating online. Part 2. A Q&A on viral financial illiteracy. The viral claims circulating online. Iran just said oil tankers can pass Hormuz, but only if you pay in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. This is the death of the petrodollar in slow motion. China is the real winner of this war. Iqbal Latif, what is this claim? Is this a big deal? Is the petrodollar really dying? This is financial theater dressed as geopolitical revelation. Let me explain why it is nonsense, and I say that with precision, not contempt. The elementary fact the viral post skips entirely is this: oil is priced in dollars, not yuan, not euros, not reals. The global benchmarks, Brent crude, WTI, and the OPEC basket, are denominated in US dollars. Iran cannot unilaterally change that any more than a single shop can decide the neighborhood will now trade in bottle caps. Oil pricing is a multilateral global infrastructure built over decades. One sanctioned country's payment preference changes nothing. But if buyers pay Iran in yuan, doesn't that reduce demand for dollars? This is where the argument collapses. The Chinese yuan is not a freely convertible currency. China maintains capital controls on the renminbi to manage exchange rates and protect export competitiveness. The yuan exists internationally, but it does not freely float. It is a managed currency. So what actually happens when someone pays in yuan? Follow the money. 1. The buyer holds dollars because trade, debt, and reserves are dollar denominated. 2. The buyer sells dollars on the FX market and buys yuan. 3. The yuan payment goes to Iran. 4. Iran, or its counterparty, converts the yuan back into dollars because the world economy still runs on dollars. The dollar never left the room. It simply took a detour through a currency desk and returned. This is a conversion step, not a monetary revolution. Quet, can you illustrate this with numbers? Certainly. 1 million barrels of oil at $100 per barrel equals $100 million. Iran asks to be paid in yuan. A bank or trading house sells $100 million to buy yuan. Iran receives yuan. But what happens next? Those yuan are converted back into dollars because sovereign debt is issued in dollars, international trade contracts settle in dollars, the IMF operates in dollars, global trade finance still runs through dollar systems. The $100 million demand for dollars did not disappear. It was merely delayed. Mistaking this for a global monetary shift is like watching water flow around a rock and declaring the river has changed course. So, what is China actually gaining? China is not leading a monetary revolution. China is exploiting bargaining power. Iran is under sanctions and cannot sell oil freely on international markets. China, knowing Iran has limited options, buys oil at significant discounts and often settles payments in yuan. This is not a new financial system. It is a powerful buyer negotiating favorable terms with a constrained seller. If the yuan were truly replacing the dollar, China would not maintain capital controls. Chinese corporations would not continue raising debt in dollars. China itself understands the dollar system better than many commentators do. China is winning cheap oil, not a global currency war. Q. What would actually threaten the dollar system? For the dollar to face genuine structural competition, several things would have to happen simultaneously. None of them are happening. 1. China removes capital controls and allows the yuan to float freely. 2. Major oil exporters, especially Saudi Arabia, price oil outside the dollar system. 3. A credible alternative to the global payment infrastructure emerges. 4. Central banks shift the majority of their reserves into another currency. Today, global reserves remain roughly dollar, about 58%, euro, about 20%, yuan, about 2 to 3%. The dollar's dominance is structural, not sentimental. Final reflection: strategy, reality, and the cost of illusions. One final point must be made. Around the world today, there is constant talk about geopolitical blocs, new currencies, and meetings that promise to reshape the global financial order. But meetings do not create monetary systems. Financial systems emerge from deep markets, liquidity, trust, and decades of institutional development. Declarations alone change nothing. At the same time, history repeatedly shows the tragic consequences when nations pursue ideological confrontation at the expense of economic stability. Countries do not strengthen themselves by isolating their economies or challenging the foundations of global financial systems without building credible alternatives. The results can be devastating for ordinary citizens. No nation should ever willingly subject itself to such destruction. The real lesson is simple. Nations prosper when they focus on economic development, financial stability, integration with global markets, long-term national welfare. They suffer when ideology replaces strategy and confrontation replaces economic realism. The purpose of analysis is not to celebrate anyone's hardship. It is to understand reality clearly so nations do not repeat costly mistakes. Financial systems are built slowly. They cannot be overturned by slogans, meetings, or wishful thinking. The dollar dominates not because of rhetoric, but because the global financial architecture still runs through it. Oil is priced in dollars. The world settles in dollars. Countries still need dollars. That is not sentiment, that is structure.